UIC.
Freedom and people of
Hell yeah.
freedom and people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom and people of want. Freedom and people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom and people of want. Freedom and people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom and people of want. Freedom and people of need. Yeah,
Yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. That when you free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once see we safe. UIC run the road long time. JLP and PNP I sell we out. Till I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know. The force no coercion, me freedom in a step. No one fi rob we and kill we and feel them a go make it out. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. Tonight, we're going to be continuing with part 2 of our engagement with the correctional officers across Jamaica. We are at the second stage of our discussion. You might recall we had our first discussion on Saturday, where we kind of looked at the situation and got to understand what are the different challenges that these noble men and women have been experiencing over the years. And we spoke about the fact that they're suffering from a 2-year-long protracted wage negotiation with the government that seems to be getting nowhere fast. We spoke about the need for better working conditions. We spoke about the poor working facilities. We spoke about the need for proper tools and equipment to do their job effectively. We also discussed the matter of salaries and allowances and looked at the fact that they're below their counterparts in the JCF and JDF and so on. We talked about the high rate of what is it now? The high rate of pay for or the lack of pay for holidays and weekends. We spoke about the lack of adequate vacation time. We spoke about the overtime pay issue, and we spoke about the unions and their ineffectiveness. We spoke about the fact that they're not getting any traction, so to speak, from the opposition party in Parliament to help them with the cause. And we spoke about the need for mobilization. I understand that actually today there were some amount of actions taken at one of the centers. I think it's a Tower Street development where there was a sick out of some sort. I also understand that there were efforts made to suppress the impact of that. But in any event, tonight we're going to talk about what we're going to do together, and we're giving some people a chance to come on to the platform. There are about 30 of us so far on the Zoom platform, and I can see the numbers building also on the online platform as well. One second here. There are 4 major issues that came out of the last conversation. There are a number of issues, but 4 core issues came out. And we're going to look at those core issues in the letter that we're going to be sending to the Prime Minister and the opposition leader, as well as the media houses, so that they can tell us, people of Jamaica and the correctional workers, officers if they share the view that we all hold, that these 4 or 5 issues need to be dealt with immediately. So again, welcome tonight to all of you. Thank you for being on the platform. As promised, I told you we would meet on Tuesday with the National Executive Council to discuss the matter, and that will get back to you. We felt it necessary to act very quickly and arrange the meeting today on Wednesday, so that we can get your approval for what we're going to be sending out to the government shortly. So again, welcome everyone. Do we have Mr. Moffat on the call? Let me know if you're on, Mr. Moffat. I also got a call notifying me that there is an attempt or a possible attempt to take legal action against persons who may have participated in the last discussion we had. That's just an empty threat. They cannot take legal actions against you for exercising your right to freedom of speech. And of course, we were all very responsible in our speech the last time around, so there's no need for anyone to be concerned. But if they should attempt to do that, the UIC will stand shoulder to shoulder with you through the process to defend your rights. In fact, as we speak, we have the government right now in court at the Supreme Court level, where we're challenging a number of their actions over the last COVID period, when they infringed on people's rights, including my own. So we have them in court now, and we expect to win that case in short order. They've been delaying it somewhat. All right, so now we're still waiting for others to join, to come on. So please give us a few more minutes for the others to get on the live. In the meantime, Miss Williams, do you have some pictures for us from the various centers? Let me know if you have some. So I want to talk about some of those tonight. Good evening, Kennard. Good evening, Ms. Chakanowski. Good evening to all of you who are speaking here in the chat section. So Ms. Williams, let me know if you have any of those diagrams ready. You can indicate to me in the private chat, if you will, to let me know what you have presently. I hope you can hear me, Ms. Williams. Let me know. Okay, you're getting them. Thank you. All right, wonderful. All right, so while we wait for the others to come on, I was hoping to hear from Mr. Moffat. I'm not hearing him yet. Is there anyone on the call who'd like to give us an update as to anything that's happening on your end in your particular? You don't have to name the center or name the facility, but any new developments there? Anyone from Tower Street, for example, who might want to tell us how things went there today, generally?
Rocky?
No? No one from Tower Street?
I saw the right up in. Right up.
I see Samsung SMA1. Your microphone was open, but I couldn't hear you. All right, so let's begin, because we're not going to stay very long tonight. I want to just give you a quick update as to where we are and what the next steps are at this stage. As promised in our last meeting, I was going to share with you, let me see if I can do it on my end here, the letter that we're going to send to the Prime Minister and the opposition leader And I want to get your feedback on that, if the content is satisfactory or not. I just wanted them, to have at least a good representation here before we get into it and share, that in particular with you. Ms. Williams, any hope of getting those soon? There was an article in the Gleaner that I'd love to get your take on. Give me a minute here. And this was earlier in the year. It was speaking to the St. Catherine Adult Correctional Center in Spanish Town. And it was on February 6, 2023. It points out that numerous reports and studies available on prisons and prisoners across developing countries highlight that inmates are routinely treated cruelly and serve time in deplorable living conditions. This is no different in the case of Jamaica, which has several punitive, harsh, and overcrowded prisons, which have repeatedly led to the mistreatment and neglect of the wholesome interest or rehabilitation of prisoners. The current lack of interest in prisoner rights in Jamaica has been described as disgraceful and inhumane by various human rights organizations, as issues such as sanitation and safety have manifested into numerous health and psychological effects on inmates. It says, but rightly so, isn't it? Many would agree that criminals do the crime, so they deserve to serve their time in the most uncomfortable and unfavorable situations. Many Jamaicans who have suffered at the hands of the criminal world agree that prison is a well-deserved punishment for one's injustices and sins. Prisons are in existence.
You're muted, sir.
Okay. Welcome, Emilio. Sorry, we're waiting for a few others to join us here, but I want to get your take on this, because as much as it is talking about prisoners, it really affects the environment in which you work as officers in the system. So I want to get your thoughts on what I'm seeing here. And forgive me, I'm trying to navigate back here. We seem to have some technical issues. 1 second. Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on this while I wait for the others to join. It says that many Jamaicans, it says prisons are in existence to, among other things, rehabilitate persons who are incarcerated. However, in many cases, the incarceration period has not resulted in lessons learned from one's action, but a gravitation to greater evil, or even the sending of a message to the system. In 2021, the number of persons admitted was 903, where 369 of them were reoffenders, resulting in a recidivism rate of 41%, which means reoffending. The crimes committed by these repeat offenders range from illegal possession of firearms and ammunition to sexual offenses and offenses related to murder and manslaughter, among others, with a recidivism rate that exceeds global standards of 20 to 23%. So we're almost double. The institutional effectiveness for rehabilitation and the psychological care provided to inmates as a means of breaking the cycle of violence must be called into question. The following is the breakdown of the number of previously convicted non-custodial and custodial persons by correctional facilities in 2021. And it goes on to list them. Some high numbers, 534 in one 116 in another, and so on. In exploratory studies conducted with former prisoners, many have recounted the poor conditions, lack of good sanitation, medical attention, supportive care, sleep, conflicts, and nutritional imbalances that instead of contributing to their rehabilitation or allowing them time for reflection on their acts of injustices, have led to more medical and psychological challenges than good. This results in a greater chance of reoffending than prior to being incarcerated in the first instance. The prison population in Jamaica was 3,565 at the end of 2021. Jamaica has 8 adult correctional facilities and 4 juvenile facilities. There is a female prison, a male and female remand center, and 6 male prisons for men. Despite the fact that there are 6 male prisons, the majority of male offenders are housed in 2 facilities, Tower Street and St. Catherine Adult Correctional Centers. Both of these facilities are currently operating above capacity. That means overcrowding. The Tower Street prison operates at 200% of its 850 inmate capacity. Sorry, at 200%. So that means it has twice the amount of inmates it is structurally supposed to have, while St. Catherine operates at 107% of its capacity of 850 inmates. And then it goes on to say that these facilities are unfit for living by international standards and unreasonable for human operations. Numerous reports, articles, and interventions have highlighted the impact of overcrowding on the health and safety of prisoners. And I'm going to add the health and safety of correctional officers too. In an Access to Information report in 2018, it was reported that 400 inmates had been injured. More than 100 had received emergency medical attention, and many did not survive. That means they died. This resulted from violent clashes between inmates and standoffs between inmates and correctional officers. In many cases, adequate medical attention did not materialize. This increased violence among inmates can be attributed to the inhumane conditions under which staff and prisoners coexist. You heard that, right? So the conditions itself creates the situation that inflames conflicts and puts both prisoners and workers, correctional officers, at risk. Dacia Leslie argues that the overcrowding poses a risk and limits interventions aimed at promoting positive behavior. Inmates are exposed to overcrowded prison conditions and are more likely to suffer from psychological or psychosocial stress, aggressive behavior, impulsive behaviors, drug use, etc. And as such, are more likely to violate their parole and get rearrested. Therefore, overcrowding is negatively impacting prisoners inside and outside of prison. It is no surprise that sleep deprivation causes stress, headaches, anxiety, and other medical problems. Yeah, this is also linked to the problem of poor bedding in our already overcrowded prison system. Sleeping deprivation was linked to depression and the use of addictive substances such as cigarettes and marijuana, according to a study conducted in Eastern Ethiopia. Therefore, poor sleep quality is correlated with improper bedding and overcrowding. Because these conditions are linked to mental illnesses and other medical conditions, they can
Not hearing you, Mr. Patterson.
You're muted, sir.
Okay, it seems as if I'm being muted and unmuted here. All right. I don't know how much of what I said a while ago you heard. So, Miss Williams, was I muted for a long time there? Please let me. I seem to be going in and out of mute.
Oh, no, just for about 10 to 15 seconds.
Miss Williams?
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. You know, it seemed like you're speaking, but I can't hear you.
You were muted for about
Can
10 or
you
15 seconds.
put it in the chat box because I can't hear you at all. All right, while I'm waiting to see if you can let me know what's happening, I see a comment from one person here. He says, "Good night, Mr. Patterson. One of the biggest concerns we have surrounds a policy known as day in lieu, where an officer is given a day for working beyond his normal hours overtime. This has been going on for years. In the 2017 to 2021 wage negotiation, an agreement made between the management unions and the government that they should form a working committee between the unions and the management of DCS. To date, officers are still having to get a day in lieu, which is a breach of the overtime laws in Jamaica. Officers have gone home after accumulating over 1,000 days, more than 3 years' pay. At retirement, others have died. Yet this illegal policy continues with the government's knowledge and the union's inaction in doing anything to stop this injustice. I look forward to your intervention." Can someone on the platform open your mic and confirm that for me? That based on your agreement, your labor relations agreement, your contract agreement, you are being forced to take a day in lieu of overtime pay.
Yes, sir.
Contract. Can somebody confirm that for me verbally?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's right. Whoever comment that is very right.
I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm not hearing anyone that's speaking. Miss Williams, can you please help us out here? I saw where a few persons up there thing showing that they're speaking, but I cannot hear them.
Testing. Can you hear me, Mr. Patterson? This is Janet.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so 3 people responded and said, yes, that information is accurate.
Okay. All right, good. I can hear now. I'm not sure what was happening there. All right, that's another comment here. And by the way, I'm coming to our main point. So hold on for the main point. I just need to get the platform filled up with all the persons that need to be here. We're at 72 at the moment on the Zoom platform. We need to get to 100. Please tell all the others to come on. We need to get to. We've expanded the platform. Mr. Singh, hold on a second. You want to talk? You want to say something? All right. So we need to get to, we've opened the platform for the 500 of you to be on. Last time we were limited and we heard late that we needed to open for more. So we've done it now. The St. Catherine ACC is grossly lacking in rehabilitation programs compared to the number of inmates. The rehabilitation programs are meager. Again, I can hardly see how you can have a rehabilitation program in a facility that is really a dungeon. It sounds to me like it's a dungeon that people are living in. How can you have a respectful, reasonable, amenable, decent rehabilitation with inmates who are being treated like animals, or worse than animals, actually, and not even animals should be treated that way. And we're not trying to say you need to be soft on criminals. So the difference between, a part of the punishment is hard labor for some, and to be away from the public, you're taken away from the public and you're incarcerated and your freedom has been restricted and so on. But it doesn't mean that the treatment should be inhumane. But not only is it inhumane for the inmates, It's also inhumane for the correctional officers. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. I'm seeing here a situation where for the correctional officer, the environment is wrong, is poor, is bad. And it's also, and more so, bad for the inmates, which creates an antagonistic environment and not one that lends itself to rehabilitation. In fact, it lends itself to a person going in. Let's say you measure the violent nature of a person on a scale of 1 to 10, and they go in with a violent nature, I'd say level 5. And after the system is finished with them, their violent nature has risen to a level 10. So if they're released back into society, they're released worse than they were brought into the system. Can somebody comment on that? Let me know if my assessment makes any sense to you, while I look at some more comments here. One person says correctional officers are very depressed, especially in this time of season. Many officers' pay are short, not to mention the hand-to-mouth that, and I cannot read this piece here, get us pay. Correctional officers are treated as the worst. Management do not care about us. If we speak up, our rights are then summoning us to come to the glass house. What's the glass house? Somebody tell me what that is. What's the glass house? What's the glass house?
There's a hand up from Emilio.
Go ahead, Emilio, please. Thank you.
All right. Am I being heard properly?
Yes, you are. Loud and clear. Thank you.
All right. The glass house is the head office on King Street, 5 to 7 King Street.
Okay. So they summon you if you try to speak up for your rights. So you have to be afraid. So you live on the fear. You work on the fear that if you try to address a problem, so for example, in this case here of the overtime, you're getting a day in lieu. If you speak out about this, you're summoned to the glass house, as opposed to your rights being honored. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. And someone says even taxes allowance isn't being paid. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah. What does that mean? Taxes allowance isn't being paid. Oh, taxi allowance. Ah, got it. Taxi allowance. That's not being paid. So it seems like it's a patty shop they're running over there. Eh? They're just kind of doing things willy-nilly. There are rules and they just ignore the rules. Go ahead, Star. Star, you speaking to us? No. Another person here says, over the years, successive governments have turned a blind eye on prison. They do the minimal, I guess, just to make the wider public believe we have a great rehabilitation program. We don't. They boast about a few inmates getting passes in CXC, but that's just a few inmates. Majority of inmates just get up every day having nothing to do. The government has no interest in prison, and correctional officers are treated even worse. Both the jailer and the jailees are in jail. Now, that's a very powerful statement. And that's my assessment. That's what I'm seeing. Because if you make the situation so poor for the inmates, then it makes the life and work of the correctional officers that much harder. You're tying their hands behind their backs while giving them a baton, if they get one, to go in. Mr. X, mute your mic if you're not speaking to us. All right, so the difference between officers and inmates is that we're allowed to go home, but we have to work in the same environment. So true. Another comment here on the chat. We want our union leaders for Jamaica Federation to go, and that's quite understandable. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share with you the letter that we're going to send to the Prime Minister and to the opposition leader and to the media. It's an open letter. And we're going to give them an opportunity to come in prison and correctional. Come on, Orlando, mute your mic. And we're going to give them an opportunity to come clean with the Jamaican people and to say clearly whether or not they're interested in a real solution for correctional officers. And that's the first step in our process of mobilization. I want to make sure that when I read this letter, I have your full attention and I have everyone on the platform. And you're going to decide whether or not you want this to happen or not. You're going to vote on the content to let them know if you want this to go forward. Someone wrote here to say too much civilian working at the head office, even commission that was temporarily appointed is a civilian. And I think what you're saying is you have persons at head office who may not understand the nature of the work. That's what you're really saying, right? Because, you know, a civilian, help me to understand that. You tell me, you know, is it a case where, is it so much civilian or is it persons who just don't understand? They're not properly exposed. They're not fully engaged, because I think you have some people who may be in leadership or in managerial positions who are not actually engaging with the actual work. You know, so they're not engaging with the actual work on the ground. So for example, let's say I, as a civilian, was appointed to one of the boards related to this. In order for me to effectively carry out my job as a board member overseeing the work of the Department of Correctional Services, I would need to spend some time in each of the correctional facilities, and not a sanitized visit, an unannounced visit. I would have to spend time in different segments of the facility. I'd have to spend time in close proximity to what's happening with the inmates, with what's happening in the administration, and I'd have to interview correctional officers outside of the presence of their direct supervisors. You know, I would have to watch CCTV footage to get an appreciation. So having that information now would inform how I perform on the board. But one thing I notice here in our lovely country is that many people sit on these boards, but they're not engaged in doing anything productive or meaningful to address the issues of the board on which they're sitting, you know. Another person just says here, can you believe in this day and age, inmates are still having to pass their urine in bottles and pass their feces on paper bag? And we, as correctional officers, have to deal with it, with all of this every single day. But the walls are so high, the public would not have any knowledge what we're facing. The situation is really bad. I can attest to that. When I was remanded into custody at the Tower Street facility, was it? We were placed in a jail cell where the bedding was a concrete slab. The inside was dirty with all kind of garbage and debris littered inside the prison. We were given a plastic bottle to pee in. That's correct. I saw that. I was a part of that. And defecating was similarly unconscionable. The ventilation was very poor. Lighting was poor. The smell was horrendous. Now, this kind of environment inflames both the worker and the inmate. If you're living in filth, if you're working in filth, it's going to bring out the worst in you. That is why the UIC has a policy that Jamaica in general has to be a very clean environment and beautiful environment if we want to bring out the best in our people. And the same applies in our prisons or remand centers or juvenile detention centers. We have to make the space such that you can reach the minds of the inmates and help them to convert from what they were into what they should become. If you don't make those kind of preparative work done, if you don't create the environment for them to be rehabilitated, what you're doing is actually training them to become worse than they probably were when they came into the facilities. And I believe that's what's happening. Another person here has written, it says here in the inbox, oh yes, that's correct, the Horizon Remand Center. Thank you so much, Amelia, appreciate that. Basically, the civilians are not looking out for the correctional officers' welfare. When documents send from your institution for them to pay taxi allowances, when it reaches the head office, it takes up to 5 months before we can get money. And why is it taking 5 months? I can tell you why it's taking 5 months for you to get paid. Our government services knows nothing about efficiency or customer service. Our system is not designed to be respectful of the customer. And by the way, in any system, in any company, any organization, everybody is a customer of somebody else. And when I talk about customer, I'm not talking about somebody like just outside of the establishment interfacing with you. Everybody is a customer. You are a customer of your peers, and your boss is a customer of yours, and vice versa. So what we don't have in our public service is a culture of customer service. What we don't have built into the incentive programs of our public servants is an incentive for them to be highly efficient and highly productive, and understanding the flow of quality control from one department to another, and from one ministry to another, or from one service sector to another. So we don't have that built in, and we have never had leaders who care enough to ensure that this happens. And so this filters out into the society, and that is why Jamaica is so very disorderly and highly corrupt, because of the leaders we have had and how they have led us for the last 80 years. Someone else says here, they're not engaged in the actions, so they don't have an understanding of the nature of the work being carried out by correctional officers. In regards to the nature of the work and the high levels of risk faced in those facilities, unsafe and unsanitary facilities. So yes, so they don't understand, but it's more than just an understanding. They don't have a proper chain of command. They don't have accountabilities built in. They don't have checks and balances, and the incentive scheme does not lend itself to them being rewarded or punished based on performance. And once you don't have a system of rewarding people based on performance or punishing them based on poor performance, you're going to get the results that we're getting here. And that's why the UIC is so big on system solutions, because we do not have good systems, you're going to get very bad results. Another person here says, when a minister is scheduled to visit the institution, the higher-ups ensure that the institution is spruced up and every station is manned, and only show them part of the prison and not a tour of the complete institution. And the institution isn't unlocked until they are finished and the ministers have left the place. And that's where any intelligent and informed manager, CEO, general manager, minister of government understands that this is how it happens in organizations. So you have to plan and mitigate against this kind of behavior. So if you really want to get at the truth, you have to make sure you do things that reveals the truth. But the ministers want the lie. They want to be able to go to the facility and say that it's okay. And so they are complicit. So it's not just the leadership at the departments that are, you know, covering up the reality. The ministers of government, the government itself, is a part of covering up the reality because they themselves do not want that reality to become public. But we're going to expose it all. We're going to expose it, and we're going to give them an opportunity to do the right thing, or we might have to force them to do the right thing. Yeah. Right along, tuberculosis is a major problem in our institutions. Yeah. The department is run by civilians that don't know the things, don't know anything about the operations. They don't want to do their work for you to get paid, so they stay back and do overtime because they, the civilian employees, get overtime paid. My goodness, you see, that's what I'm telling you. You know, if you have a bad design, you get bad results. So the design incentivizes those in the office to work overtime because they will get their overtime paid. It doesn't incentivize them to make sure that the frontline workers are being paid timely and properly. And the results, you know, would be what we want it to be. So again, you know, I don't blame these civilian workers. Who I blame are those who designed the system and those who continue to maintain that system. You know, and of course, that is our political leadership. They're the ones that have to commission the structure and design of the systems that we have to endure. And that's the problem. As long as they are continuing to allow this, it will, you know, you can have a company. I've worked with many companies over the years. I've built a few. You can have a bad company, a company that is doing poorly. Their profitabilities are not good. They're not very efficient. They're not very effective. Their customer service is horrible. And you just change the management. And new management come in and they change the structures of the company. They reorganize the company. They put in better policies in the company. They create better incentive schemes, better compensation packages, better training programs for the staff, and they develop different strategies for engaging with customers and so on. And out of that, a very poor company quickly becomes a very profitable company, and staff and management and shareholders and customers are all happy. Jamaica is no different. We have suffered for 80 years under two political parties who, within themselves, they have no incentive to make Jamaica better. The only incentive they have is to access loans and grants from abroad and political donations locally from their PSOJ oligarchs. And once that is happening, they're happy. So our schools can go to they don't want to work. Our schools can go to whatever. Our transportation system can go to whatever. Our police system can go to whatever. Our correctional facilities can go to wherever, because they don't really care. All they want is a facade of progress. And by now, you know, I mean, forgive me for digressing, but you all have heard, you know, the opposition now telling you that they know all the answers for Jamaica, and if you were to elect them, everything will be fixed. But if you're honest, they told you that before. And they were given the chance and they failed miserably. In fact, the opposition party has gotten 18.5 years straight in our government. No other political party has ever gotten 18.5 years straight in our government. And still, when they were finished, the Jamaican people were worse off because they transferred a massive amount of wealth from the poor to the rich through the banking crisis, through the run-with-it procedures, and so on. Now, the same can be said of the current government. They're the only government, the current government, the party in power now, it's the only party that has ever been given the first opportunity at every major turning point in Jamaica. When we had our first ever elections where everybody was allowed to vote, before that, only the rich and powerful and mostly white people could vote. But in 1944, we were given this thing called universal adult suffrage, one man, one vote, so everybody could vote. This was a pivotal turning point. They call it self-governance. And the first party to win that first election was the party that now occupies our government. So they had the first opportunity to set the tone, the temperature, the systems, the direction of Jamaica. And they got 2 terms to do that. And they failed miserably. And the people elected the other party after that. The same thing again occurred in independence in 1962. This same party that currently forms this government, that same party got the first opportunity at independence to run this country. This was a pivotal point in our history. They had a perfect opportunity to set Jamaica on the right path, to fix our economic system, to fix our education system, to fix our transportation. They had the first, and they had a country that was not in a terribly bad shape in many areas, you know, banana, coffee, cocoa, sugar, bauxite, all kind of stuff were there that they could use to grow the economy and grow the country. And they had the first 2 terms in office. And after 2 terms in office, the people were so distraught, again, they turned to the other party. But here's the problem. Every time they turn to the other party, they get the same result as they got from the other one. There are differences, you know, because the 2 parties do things a little differently, right? The one party encourages a lot of slackness among poor people, and they allow them to destroy the place and to tear down the country and do all kind of madness. At the grassroots level, they encourage that. I don't know why. The other party, they do the opposite. They rape the country at the rich end as much as possible and get their rich friends to get as rich as possible when they're in office. But in both cases, you're destroying the country's overall economy and destroying the infrastructure to give all of us a higher standard of living and better working conditions and better opportunities to grow our country beyond the meager position it has remained for the last 80 years under them. So what the UIC is saying now, we have to step away from this. We have to understand that if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to get more of the same result and even worse because it's getting worse and worse. Look at our education system. Bear with me. Look at what's happening. Our education system, it was not too bad at one point, then it got bad, and then it got worse, and now it's worse. You understand? It's just going. So the longer we keep them in power, that's what's happening, and that's our education system. Your education system is the foundation of the rest of your country. There's no poor nation with a highly well-educated people, none whatsoever. You cannot find a single poor country on the planet where the nation is highly educated. It's impossible. So in Jamaica, we have not highly invested in our people, and now that affects you in the correctional facilities because, you know, you're getting, you know, you have inmates. People will do bad things in any country, no matter how great the country is. You're going to have persons who do bad things and have to be incarcerated. But if most of the people who are incarcerated are mentally deficient as well, you know, their school system damaged them mentally, okay? Their home environment and how they have eaten prior to coming to you damage them physically and mentally because what you eat and how you eat affects you mentally. That's what you're dealing with. And then on top of it now, you have leaders who don't understand what it means to invest in our human capacity, and that filters into the kind of correctional system that they design. And the truth is, they don't even design it. They simply take whatever they got from their colonial masters and just peck with it and push it out and say, just go on with that and leave us in this mess. Remember, the penal system we have emanating out of our colonial masters were not about elevating. It was about slaves. And slaves, you keep slaves down. You keep them mentally crippled. You keep them devalued and deficient. So our penal system is still mirrored off that. Even our police system is still mirrored off that. Even our army is mirrored off the colonial mindset. And our leaders are similarly colonial in their minds, which is why the other day when the Queen of Slavery died, you saw our Prime Minister showing more concern and grief for her than for the people of Jamaica and what we're suffering. That he would push us to mourn the loss of the very Queen of Slavery for 12 days when even their own country now mourns so long. And when they get the first opportunity, they will clean up the street and road and roll out red carpet for these so-called royalties to come because they value them more than we. They won't roll out the red carpet for me and you. They won't clean up the street for me and you. They won't make the environment look pretty for me and you. They only want to make it pretty for the people that they value. And the people they value are the people who devalue us, the people who sold us, the people who raped us. But I've said enough there. I want to get to the document that we're going to share later, but a few more points here. It says here by somebody else, they don't want to do their work. Oh, I read that before. And here in prison, we have idle hands that can be used to help clean Jamaica. Exactly. Exactly. Can you imagine if we really made our prisoners productive? We so orient them and manage them that they add value to society. They could be doing tremendous work in farming, agriculture, permaculture, forestry, street cleaning. If you disagree with me, let me know. Raise your hand and come on and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But this person here who wrote in the chat, you're correct. We could be using our prisoners more effectively and better utilizing our facility to really rehabilitate them and bring out the best in these people where possible. If the ministers know our situation, things would have been different, but they have an unspoken motto: if it isn't broken, don't fix it, or if it is working, continue with it. Well, I don't think that our ministers don't know. They don't want to know. If you get a job, you must want to know what's happening. If you're running a company, you must want to know what's happening. If I'm running a company, let's say we're running a company where we're selling stuff. I want to know how the inventory system working. I want to know how the sales aspect of the business is going. I want to understand what's going on in the accounts department. I want to understand what's happening in marketing. I want to understand what's happening with operations. I want to understand what's happening with security. That's my job if I am going to have a managerial position. And I've been CEO of a number of companies. If you are going to have a ministerial position, and that is why the UIC said we can't have politicians being ministers of government. In our system, the UIC system, a minister of government will be somebody who is qualified and competent for the position that we're asking them to be ministers of. So instead of picking politicians and dropping them in these ministries to run, we will nominate qualified and competent people, put them through a vetting system to make sure that they meet the requirements, and then appoint them on that basis to serve the area of national security. You would have the same thing, and so on. Somebody says here, look at the amount of money being allocated to JCF stations being built, and yet still we can't get proper infrastructure to work when these prisons were built for slavery. Exactly. The prisoners are plagued with pathogens from raw feces, and we officers are exposed to these elements, and you're going to carry that home to your family. Can you imagine as a worker in the system, a correctional officer, you have to expose yourself to all of these biological hazards. And then you have to take that home to your family. I can imagine some of you don't even want to pass your door in the clothes you wear. You understand? But our leaders just don't care. I want you to see where officers have to sleep. That would be the officers who live far away from the prison. It's called rat house. It's a total disaster. Not even a mad person should be there. You see? So that's what we're talking about. Even the officers have to sleep in very poor conditions.
We have executed as polling group. So Thursday provide an opportunity.
Yeah. So management in the DCS have little regard for policies and laws. They even infringe on our rights. So the whole system has broken down, my friends. Another person says here, you're so right, Mr. Patterson. The government, Ministry of National Security, to be specific, speak about rehabilitation and reducing recidivism or reoffending. Yet, how is an inmate to attend so-called rehabilitation program, then return these dilapidated and unhygienic cell blocks? The officers know most time it is just a public relation process. And by the way, our government is a public relations stunt. Their entire operation is about public relations. It's about photo opportunities. It's about social media. That's the kind of government we have right now. So everything is done for image, for how they look, not for the reality of what's happening on the ground. And that's the same thing in our prisons. They don't care. I wish we would get some unannounced visits. Then you would see that this is only when visitors coming, the place would get a facelift. When officers speak out, management come and say it's not true. We're saying to cover up their acts. Incompetence is rewarded. It is my understanding that underutilized allotted monies that are returned to the government at the end of the financial year, a portion is given to the commission. So somebody here is saying maybe a portion is given to the commissioner. That's his understanding. And somebody said yes to that. As 21st century officers, we will not settle for what our great-grandfather, friends and foes, settled for in the 60s and 80s to carry us into 2024 and beyond. Exactly. Jamaica and Singapore have the same economic structure. No. Jamaica and Singapore does not have the same economic structure. Jamaica is far, 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 far more advantaged than Singapore. But Singapore is far, 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 far better governed than Jamaica. So Jamaica has 100 times more natural, wealthy resources than Singapore. Jamaica started life as an independent country, so-called independent country, with far more advantages than Singapore. Singapore started with far more disadvantages than Jamaica. For example, when you were growing up, you were told that Jamaica is too small to achieve many things. You're told that. That was a lie. And Singapore has proven to us that that was a lie. Jamaica is not too small to be a phenomenally wealthy and rich country where all the people in the country, the majority of the people in the country, enjoy that wealth. We're not too small. Because Singapore is only 1/15 our size. That is 1 in 15. You know, we have 14 parishes, right? 14 parishes. Singapore is smaller than St. Thomas. Yet still, they grew their economy from $550 per person in GDP per capita. $550 in 1965. In 25 years, yeah, from 1965 to 1990, they moved from third world to first world and grew their GDP from $550 per person to over $65,000 per person. During the same period, Jamaica grew our GDP from the same 550 to no more than $7,000 US per person. So when we were at $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, they were at $65,000 per person. And how did they do that? Number one, they eliminated corruption from their political system. And when I say eliminate, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that there's no corruption in Singapore. It's just that compared to us, their corruption approximates to zero when you compare the two. It's like their crime rate. We have about 45 to 60, depending on the year, murders per 100,000. They have 0.025 murders per 100,000, right? Even though they have a population that's twice our size. So we have 3 million, they have 6 million. So their population is greater than us, but their murder rate is practically zero when compared to us. Similarly, we have far more assets than them, natural assets, natural endowed assets. But our economy is minuscule when compared to theirs. Why do they have such a great economy? Number one, they made sure to build a structure of governance that minimized corruption to nearly zero compared to Jamaica. That's number one. Number two, they ensured that safety was a priority. So they made the country very safe by investing in what we call community policing. So their polices, the way their police officers work, they look for crime before it happens. So they engage in the society and in the community to preempt crime as much as possible. The UIC calls that community policing, and we have a model for that, which builds on what they have done. So again, corruption is out. Security is number two. The people are safe. When you have an anti-corrupt government and a safe environment, that's where an economy thrives, because people can safely invest in all kinds of projects and products and move that and create jobs and create exports, okay? Singapore also insisted on having a free market economy. Unlike Jamaica back in the day and even now, where they try to have a very government-centric economy that allows a few people to be gatekeepers and prevent everybody from having the freedom and the efficiency in government and the efficiency in processes to be able to build and create. Our system lock down people and prevent people. And if you now grease a politician palm, you have problems being able to move your business idea fast and forward. And you can't get access to capital because the whole thing is monopolistic. In Singapore, they did the reverse. They fly the gate and free up the economy and allow anybody who want to create and produce and invent, just do that. And so that just blow up their economy. You understand? Similar to what happened in America in the early years when they were a truly free market economy. So it blew up the economy. I mean, people are going to produce and create once you allow them. And so Singapore understood that. So no corruption or limited corruption in government. When you have limited corruption in government, more money flows into the productive sector. A highly corrupt government, money flows away from the productive sector into unproductive activities. So it gradually starves the productive economy of money and concentrate that money in the hands of unproductive people doing unproductive things like importing expensive things into the country, but not producing anything commensurate with those imports. So that's how Singapore understood how to build a great country. No corruption or low corruption in government. Number two, a very, very safe environment combined with a free market, truly free market. You explode the economy. The third thing they did was to insist on Singapore being a very clean and beautiful environment. I know this is underestimated by many. They don't understand that if you make Jamaica, all of Jamaica, look and feel like a tourist resort, it changed the mind of the people. You might have heard your grandmother say, cleanliness is next to godliness. There's something to that. If you create a very clean environment, the people's mentality shifts. It's like if you walk into, take the most dirty person, the most unkempt person, the most unrefined person, and take them into a posh building that is clean and pretty and just nice and pristine, that person is going to change their behavior when they walk in through that door. They're afraid to litter. They're afraid to nasty up the place, and so on. I'm not saying it's perfect and that you're just going to perfect transformation. I'm just telling you how the mind works. So if we make Jamaica clean by design, don't tell the people that them nasty and blame them for throwing garbage in gutter and whatever when we have flood. That's foolishness. You, the government, make sure that you insist on creating and maintaining a clean environment, not just some debushing at Christmas time. That's foolishness. Hire people, train people, have proper landscaping being done as part of your government services. So the whole place, when you step out of your house, the place where you just look nice. The sidewalk is nicely paved. There's manicured grass. There's nice, decent flowers, well-trimmed trees, planned trees. You plant them in a planned way. You understand me? And you have planned shrubs, and you have planned flowers, and you have planned grass. And we have the environment for that. Jamaica can look like heaven 12 months a year. And you plan your water harvesting and how you're going to make the thing flow. And you have this beautiful oasis as a country, not as some one piece, not just Emancipation Park. Let all of Jamaica look like Emancipation Park and better. And you're going to see a shift in people's behavior, in people's attitude. Okay? And so that is what we're talking about here. All right? Now, I want to get to my main point. I was hoping we would have our numbers by now so I could get to the main point. But we're running behind. Lots of comment in the section here. I can't get to all of them. I'm so sorry. It says here, on any given day at the prison where I work, 3 officers to at least 160 inmates. Wow, what a ratio. 3 officers to 160 inmates to supervise. And this is just one block. And the government is saying we don't deserve more salary than we're getting. This is modern day slavery. The government and DCS is sending correctional officers into depression because we can't take care of our families and the way they should because the government don't see prison and correctional officers as important. All right, very good point. I'm now going to switch gears and I'm going to share with you now the letter that we're going to send to the government. And forgive me if I can't read through all of your messages now. They're very good messages. And I realized tonight, many of you are afraid to speak out on the platform directly, I guess because of the threats of legal, legal repercussions. Yes. All right, so let me share with you. Ms. Williams, can you share the letter now, please, on screen, if you can? Ms. Williams, can you share that for us?
Get it on.
Okay. You're sharing it? Please go ahead. Somebody says your prison is infested with old and decaying asbestos buildings, causing morbid disease like increased cancer. That's a hidden killer that they have there. So while you're working there, your own government is systematically injuring you, the employee, as well as injuring the inmates as well. All right, so here is the letter that is going to go to the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. And I've included both of them because we need a collective effort here. I want to sit down with the Prime Minister and the Opposition Leader and get at this. We're not going to play politics here and try to score points or anything. Our primary goal here is just to get the Minister, the Prime Minister, the Opposition Leader, and myself to agree that these are the immediate fixes we need. So I'm going to read it through for you. It says, "Dear Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition, this is an open letter to you both to solicit your urgent and thoughtful attention to a matter of national security. This affects the safety of all Jamaicans and those who visit our shores, and was brought to my attention by some 500 concerned citizens who have found themselves in a very desperate position due to both your governance. As you know, or ought to have known, there are 11 penal institutions housing over 25,000 inmates who have been convicted for various crimes, including murder, rape, and robbery. The facilities in which these prisoners are held are not only in derelict conditions, but are staffed by some 2,500 correctional officers who are overworked, underpaid, and demoralized by the reported lack of attention and disrespect accorded them by this and previous governments. It should be clear to you both and your two parties that a badly managed correction system serves to undermine the justice system, policing system, and any hope of rehabilitating those who find themselves in conflict with the law. Ms. Williams, you want to go down for me? Ms. Williams, could you scroll down for me? Thank you very much. Just monitor so that we can keep without me having to say that. The breakdown in this area of our society could lead to very compromised officers, prison breaks, and many illegal operations being directed from within the very walls of our jails and prisons. A basic evaluation of the situation would make it clear to any reasonable mind that compensating our correctional officers below that of police officers and soldiers would be reckless endangerment of the public by the government. So I can only assume that the over 2 years delay in concluding a reasonable compensation and benefits package for these highly important and at-risk public servants must be an oversight. I therefore ask on behalf of these men and women that the following be agreed to by both of you in principle immediately, subject to a revised contract offer. Number 1, the base salary of correctional officers at the lowest rank be no less than $250,000 per month after taxes. All other levels would be adjusted upward accordingly. Number 2, their adjusted salaries and benefits be pegged to inflation and automatically adjust annually without the need for any further negotiations. Number 3, all allowances or benefits, including vacation time, be standardized across the security segment of the public sector. Correctional officers who perform duties outside their core mandate should also be adequately remunerated for the same at no less than 50% of the average industry rate. Number 4, that a renovation and modernization plan be drafted and budgeted to upgrade all penal institutions to make them both fit for purpose and pleasant to work in. This must include the input of correctional officers and result in quantifiable quarterly improvements in working conditions. Number 5, it is necessary to recognize the high-risk nature of the job, the location of the penal institutions, and the exposure of all such employees. As such, they should, by virtue of these factors, their training, and the high position of trust they hold, be immediately qualified to keep and care for a government-issued firearm at all times, and be authorized, without further processing, to own and carry a licensed firearm to protect themselves and their families while off duty. There are no doubt other matters to be discussed, but these are the most urgent and require an immediate response from both of you to assure correction officers that you agree with their request and will now work to swiftly conclude the negotiations in a manner satisfactory to them. You have my word that the nation's correction officers will take no labor relations actions that might disrupt the operations at our penal institutions if you both respond favorably to these requests within the next 48 hours. Sincerely, Joseph L. Patterson, UIC founder and chairman, and my number is provided again. My friends, this is what I want and will send to the Prime Minister and opposition leader and the media tomorrow morning, if you all agree that this is what we should do. The 5 points listed, I believe, captures the most important element for you. And if we have these agreed to verbally by the Prime Minister and the opposition leader immediately, then we can now work to quickly pass the necessary contractual agreements, and we can work out the other details subsequent. All in favor, please go ahead and write agree in the comment chat box, wherever you are, whether you are on Facebook or you're here with us on Zoom or you're on the YouTube channel or somewhere else. Go ahead and indicate that you agree with the letter as presented, and this will be sent out tomorrow morning to all media houses and to the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. I will then follow up this with a call to both gentlemen and schedule a meeting with them to have a discussion followed by a press conference where the 3 of us shall jointly agree that this is the way forward for our correctional officers, and the Jamaican people can rest assured that we shall not continue with business as usual, because our nation, our people, our interest is at risk, all of us. All right, you can close that now, Miss Williams, so we can go back to the main screen. Let me just check and see what we have. I see it says 48 hours, then 120 ultimatum provided by the unions. Okay, totally agreed. All right, so I'm seeing here there are no disagreements so far. Michael says well written. Royo says like the 48-hour part. Green says lovely. Unknown says excellent. This is how the union heads should negotiate. Agree. Okay, totally agree. Agree 100%. Strongly agree. Okay, Javinika says 25,000 inmate is not possible, need adjusted. Ms. Williams, we had verified those numbers. Can you let me know the reference for the 25,000, please, Ms. Williams? If you can just share the reference on screen so we can verify that, that would be great. Thank you, Javon, for raising this. Let's make sure the numbers are correct. Thank you so much. Another person, Cole, said that is inaccurate. So thank you, Cole. We're going to double check that. And this is very important enough for you to check any fact that I have here and make sure that it is correct, because we want to get it right. Cole said it's over 4,000 though, so we're going to check that. 4,500 says Williams. 2,500 was referring to officers. That's correct. Guard says, as far as I can see, government don't want correctional officers to be well off. Yes, I think it's about 5,000 on the Mentally Hill dormitory at St. Catherine Adult Facility. Inmates will store up their human waste and then throw the stale human waste on the face and body of correctional. Oh my goodness. So this person is explaining how the inmates use feces to attack officers and throw that in their faces. That's just unbelievable. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I think we have in fact covered all the bases here tonight. Ms. Williams, can you just verify that 25,000 for me, please? Do you have a reference you can put on screen for us? Or Ms. Barrett, if Ms. Barrett is here, I know you were checking the numbers as well. Anyone? All right, so we shall make sure we verify the numbers for you and get the numbers accurate as possible. But thank you all for your input, really appreciate it. We have to go now. So look out tomorrow for this going out. When it comes into your inboxes, it will send to all of you by WhatsApp as well. You can share it far and wide, and we will work with you. Once I hear back from, well, you know, we have 48 hours from tomorrow. So when we send this out in the morning, 48 hours from then, we expect to have heard from the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. I will then share with you what response we get, if any. And then we will have our next meeting and take our next set of actions. This will not end here. The only acceptable result is for your compensation and your working condition and your security to be positively addressed by we, the Jamaican people, of which the government is supposed to be a reflection. So if the government is not willing to do what we, the Jamaican people, want it to do, then we have to take further steps to correct that as well. All right, so thank you very much. Have a good night until we meet again. Take care.